All right, we're moving on with the creative nonfiction stuff, and if you haven't already done so, please read this story, The Santaland Diaries by David Sedaris. Do you know David Sedaris? He's pretty well known. His sister is also pretty famous, Amy. She's been in a lot of movies and TV shows. She's also very funny, funny family. If you liked this story, I hope you did. Cool. Couple fun things to point out about it. One is that there is a famous recording of David Sedaris reading this, or a variation of this, for NPR. He did it years ago, and it kind of became like a Christmas sort of tradition that NPR plays every year in the Christmas time. Obviously because of the subject matter, but also because it's a great listen. He's got a really funny, he actually sounds kind of like an elf. I would play some of it here, but I don't want this video to get taken down on YouTube. So, but you can go and find it easily if you search for Santaland Diaries, and even NPR. NPR hosts a version of him reading it that's fun to listen to. And it's actually interesting if you do, which I kind of encourage you to do, to listen along as you have this PDF open in front of you. Just to see how Sedaris himself has edited, revised, and changed the story around a little bit since its first publication, which is the version that I gave you. He has, as most writers do, modified it, and added some things and moved things around, even changed like whole sections to kind of come earlier than later. So if you do follow along, you might find yourself getting lost because he doesn't stick to this exact script right here the way that it's on the paper, which is fine. And again, that's your prerogative as a writer as you go forward, especially if you think of new ways to retell and re-retell your own stories or poems or whatever they may be. But that's a whole side thing. I don't have a whole lot to say about this. I'm not going to read it out loud to you, obviously, but I do want to point out some things that I think are really effective about this particular story. And it is creative nonfiction. This is a real life thing that happened to him. And in fact, that's mostly what David Sedaris writes about, his memoir of things that have happened to him in his life. He's led a really interesting life and done a lot of really funny and interesting things. He's still around, by the way, still publishing, at least as far as when I record this video. Hopefully I don't jinx anything for him, because I like him. I hope he sticks around. And in fact, he's got a whole bunch of books full of writing just like this. Very funny stuff, and pretty much all true to his life and memoir and things that he's done in his past. Maybe not as bizarre as working in his 20s as an elf in Macy's in New York City, but still interesting stuff for sure. So what you probably noticed almost right away is humor is used a lot in this story, and that's not necessarily something that is necessary for a creative nonfiction story to be effective, but if you can use humor, especially if it's reflective of your own personality and the things that you find funny, that can be a great way to get your audience in on your side with you. He's in this story, he's very sassy, he's very, you can see things that, he says almost right away. Like, for instance, when he's talking about when he sees people dressed up as objects on the street handing out leaflets, graciously saying thank you so much and thinking, you poor pathetic son of a bitch. That he's establishing his voice right away, who he is and what kind of person he is. When he says later that he took a drug test to get the job, and that his urine test was full of, stems and leaves, basically, from, the pot that he'd been smoking. Obviously an exaggeration, a joke there, but you get a real good picture of what kind of person he is and how he kind of, it's a funny thing that happens to him here. And that's basically, he says right above here, why he even took this job in the first place was because it sounded funny to him. Yeah, he was looking for a job, he's looking for a paycheck, but he doesn't want to be an elf, very clearly. Who does? I mean, I guess some people maybe do, but clearly he's not in it because he has a true affinity for elf culture or Christmas even, right? He's obviously aware of what his job is going to be and what it entails, but even the absurdity of the stuff that he's presented with throughout this story, working in this place, and not just the people that he works with, but especially the customers and all the different people that he describes. There's a lot of really fascinating things here. But yeah, I mean, he says he came to New York to become, the next big thing. He wanted to become an actor, and these are the things that he could do. He expected a lot more and things to be crazier by the time he got to New York, but obviously that didn't play out. So here he is at Christmas time for a few weeks dressing up in a crazy outfit, right? Sedaris uses dialogue incredibly effectively. I hope you noticed that. Each one of these people, absolutely comes to life through not just himself. I mean, he definitely has his own dialogue, things that he says, but the people, again, that he encounters, whether it be, again, the manager who, is, kind of chiding everybody for, who they are and making sure that they follow the rules of, what it is that elves are supposed to be, or whether it's the strange customers, whether they're children or adults and stuff like that. Description, bringing things to life. He describes what Santaland itself looks like and all these strange details, like, for instance, the vomit corner, where kids get freaked out and tend to lose their lunch more places than others. I don't know. I mean, you read it, right? I hope you read it. Please read it if you didn't. It all comes to life in a way, and you feel like you're in his curly elf shoes when you read this story, right? So yeah, you don't have to be humorous. If you can, great. Your story doesn't have to be funny. Your story doesn't have to be bizarre like this one. But, I think he is following all the rules that creative nonfiction is meant to do anyway, which is, again, bringing us to this place. I never worked as an elf, but after reading this story, I feel like I have been there. I feel like I have been, part of his life and the stuff that he experienced overall. And that's great. And that's, again, the whole purpose of creative nonfiction overall. So this is a great example of, obviously it's much longer than I'm expecting any of you to write, for sure. But, even just a page or two of these is enough to show like great examples of what it is he's trying to do. And then, there's a resolution at the end where it gets all the way to when he basically walks off the job because, it's so weird and it's just gotten so strange for him and it's time for him to go, right? So it's a great story. I love this story a lot. I encourage you absolutely to listen along with it and to play along with it, but to take a close look at the things that he's doing. And there's a very informal style here that he's using, which you will probably use in your own creative nonfiction, although that's up to you, of course. But it feels like someone telling you a story, but the detail and the level of description that he's giving is the thing that elevates this beyond just, let me tell you the funny story about how I used to work as an elf, and then it just lasts for like a couple minutes before it just disappears. There's a lot more detail here, obviously, than something as simple as that. And that's what you're going to want to do. There's nothing mind-blowing here, right? This is just a strange minimum wage job, but that's essentially what it is. And again, your creative nonfiction story doesn't have to be, again, the most mind-blowing, altering event of your life, but the more that you can blow the little things up into something larger, the more your audience is going to want to follow along. So let me pause real quick and switch slides. All right, and here it is. Here is your final assignment. This is the end. This is the big one. This is a big choice, in fact, because while we've only so far talked about creative nonfiction, you have a choice between either writing a CNF story or a short play or a screenplay scene, and we'll talk about those pretty soon. That's what you got right here. So if you do creative nonfiction, it needs to be a minimum of 4 to 6 pages. If you decide to go with a play or a screenplay, it should be, again, a short scene that would take about 5 to 10 minutes to act out on stage or on screen. You can check and see your due dates and stuff like that in the syllabus, so you can fill those in. And it's 100 points. So here's the deal. You have a choice. It's one or the other. So if you are really digging creative nonfiction, if you've come up with some really cool stories for what you want to get across, something neat happened to you and you want to turn it into something bigger, go for it. You can go that route. If you'd rather go with this play or a screenplay, if that's your style, have at it. Go for it. Come up with something really cool. It will probably be a short part of something bigger that you maybe have. So it doesn't have to tell an entire story. In fact, it likely won't, because again, we're not dealing with a full-length play or a full-length movie screenplay or a television screenplay. Just a short scene, again, from one of those things. And if you want to provide some context before or after with a paragraph or something like that, that's okay with me. So, yep, your choice. Go with what you want. As I say here, creative nonfiction stories should show usage of the important cornerstones of this genre, finding ways to tell a story of a real-life event while creatively bringing your audience into your shoes to experience things as you did and beyond, creatively, however you want to do it. You know the usual offenders: theme, character development, plot style, tone, language and word choice, and of course tense, again past or present like we talked about. These are all things to consider in telling your story, as well as what role your narrator will play. You're the narrator. It's likely from your point of view, so what role are they going to play in telling the story to your readers? Stories should be, again, about a minimum of 4 to 6 pages. If you go past that length, you can definitely go more than 4 to 6 pages, but if you go that length, really consider what you're using your pages to do. Are you using them to tell your story, or are you adding in some filler details that aren't necessary to develop your characters, your stories, your themes? And if it is just filler, slice that stuff out to get to the nucleus of the story you want to tell. That's a tricky part of creative nonfiction because, again, you lived it. It's all up in here. So there's all the big details, and all the little ones and everything in between are going to be swimming around, especially as you start writing about it. There's something that happens in our brains when we start writing about things from the past. We just kind of start to remember more things typically. If you've ever kept a journal or a diary, you've maybe seen this in action. So then it's really thinking about, again, what stuff do you really, really, really want to have in your story, and what stuff is just details that might be interesting, might be cool, but is it doing anything? Your call, but don't fill it up with the random stuff, right? But if you want to flip the coin and do the other side of this assignment, have at it. You can do play or screenplay. As I say here, it needs to adhere to the formatting rules. So we're going to talk about formatting rules because plays and screenplays especially are not written the way that stories are. There are specific strict rules, so that is something to consider depending on which of these you want to go with. You also need to show your ability to use predominantly dialogue effectively to tell the story within the confines of play or screenplay writing. If you've ever looked at a script, you know, or read a Shakespeare play or something like that in high school, you know that it is mostly made up of dialogue. Character A says this, character B says that, and so on and so forth. There are other elements, like I say here, like settings, stage directions, and more, which you can use to fill in the details, but most of this writing will be dialogue-based. So find your ear for the speech of your characters that you create to help your audience into the world and use their imagination to picture it as it plays out. And again, it should be part of a larger piece, a short scene of something bigger. Think about something that would probably take about 5 to 10 minutes to shoot on stage or act out on screen, whatever, stage or screen, sorry. Act out on stage, shoot on screen. Got it. And again, if it goes longer than that, again, consider what it is that you're doing and how much time you're using and what you're using it for. And to time it, you might even want to even set like a timer and act it out yourself, and act it out in a real way too, the way that people would go back and forth acting, not just reading it kind of like, in a flat kind of tone. Think about how it would play out. As always, nothing new here. Your grading will be based not on the talent you possess, but your work towards achieving the goals of these genres as discussed already and will be discussed more in class. But big side note here, this assignment is not available for revision. That's different than assignments 1 and 2. Only reason being this is due at the very end of the semester. There's no time to get it back and fix it up. So because of that, you might want to definitely obviously take your time, but definitely come to me for as much feedback as you would like, as often as you need to. I'm glad to give you whatever I can. And of course, we will be workshopping these like we did before, same groups and all the stuff that we've done so far. So far, so good. Okay, so this has been kicked off. It's been official, and off we go. It's time to do some exercises. Those are coming up soon. We're going to start off with creative nonfiction, and then we'll switch to the screenplays and play information soon. All right, thanks. Bye.